Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Means we're brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And we are fired up. You are here. Saints had a surprise retirement over the weekend, and they're back on the practice field today. Here's some sound from Kellen Moore a little bit later on in the show. Going to go up to Oxford, Mississippi. Michael Katz covers Ole Miss, and he's been involved in the inner workings of this lawsuit against Devin Harper and Prince William Mielen. He wrote a really good story over the weekend. I just wanted to get his thoughts on it and then how it could work out over the course of the next, call it 6 months. There's a suggestion that if this does get to a court, that it'll be long after this season is completed by the time any sort of finality comes to it. But I'm curious, from somebody who's talked to a lot of attorneys and gotten to the bottom of what is going on there in Oxford with two of LSU's players. We'll talk to Michael Katz about that and maybe some football coming up in 30 minutes. So plenty to do. Plenty to do. LSU starts camp on a Wednesday of this week, so we'll get into some of that as we move forward. But right now, it's starting with baseball as our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Took my kiddo to the swimming pool this weekend and came back. We're trying to get everybody dried off and get settled in for some dinner. And all of a sudden I look up and Logan Schmidt's posting on Instagram that he's going to head to LSU. So I checked on it with the program, got it confirmed. And we wrote it up at LouisianaSports.net. Logan Schmidt has decided he's going to play 3 years of college baseball at LSU. It's been kind of a 2-week unfolding of events from MLB draft day to decision day for Logan Schmidt. We knew there wasn't a significant deadline on this, only the beginning of school, which doesn't come up for another couple of weeks. But I told you it really wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't any more recruiting. This was just going to be a young man and his camp making a decision whenever they decided to do that. And ultimately, the decision fell in Jay Johnson's favor. I told you last week, I said, this is not decided. My instinct is to go with the chalk, which as of 2 weeks ago was that he was never going to play baseball at a 4-year college. And I just decided to stick with the chalk with no real inside information other than that LSU was pursuing him and had made its case. And ultimately, I was wrong. Logan Schmidt decided he wanted to go the LSU route and to try to fall in line with Cade Anderson, with Anthony Ianson, with Gage Jump, with Paul Skeens, with the guys that have gone to LSU, gotten into a phenomenal pitching ecosystem, developed themselves into elite-level prospects, and signed for huge money. And that's what he's going to attempt to do. This is a big get for LSU. There's no question about that. He was a second-round pick based on talent. That's not even conjecture. Sometimes we get on and we're talking about high school guys and we just throw it around. This guy's probably going to be first, second-round pick. This guy actually was a second-round pick. That's the difference. And that tells you the talent you're dealing with here. He's 6'4". He's 215 pounds. He's up to 97 miles an hour, comfortably sits 94, 95 miles an hour. He throws a ton of strikes. He's got a very repeatable motion. I would like him actually to use his lower half a little bit more. It's oversimplified for me, but he still generates plenty of velocity, and he's a heck of a left-handed pitching prospect. There's no question about it. And players like him, there aren't very many of them, generally get $3 million coming out of high school. And that wasn't available to him with Cleveland. It was only 1.7. So he's betting on himself to make this happen. I want to be pretty clear because I've gotten some text messages over the course of the last couple of days about Logan Schmidt. I'm not going to put a ceiling on what Logan Schmidt can be. I'm only telling you my expectation, Hunt's expectation. This is not Jay Johnson's expectation. This is not Nate Yeski's expectation. And yours can be whatever you want it to be. This is my expectation. I think he comes in and pitches out of the bullpen as a helpful left-hander on this staff in 2027, I should say. This is not, to me, some plug-and-play weekend guy. Yes, he was a second-round pick, but consider some of the top prospects that have come in to this program on the mound in the Jay Johnson era. Like Cade Anderson, yes, he was coming off of an arm surgery, but he had a 27 ERA in the SEC play as a freshman. William Schmidt was a huge prospect going into his draft after high school. He walked 11 guys in 2 SEC innings as a freshman, was not ready to go out there and pitch. Cam Johnson was a huge left-handed pitching signee that LSU brought in, didn't think he would get to campus. He did. He made 2 college stops and never figured anything out and never became a real factor on an SEC team. So, like, prospect and player are 2 different things. And so I'm not putting a ceiling on Schmidt. I'm not telling you that he can't pitch in the SEC. Kason Evans did just fine as a freshman. The example that I use at times is Alex Lang. Like, he's the unicorn here. Lang came in and went 12-0 with a 1.97 ERA in 2015 for an Omaha team. Like, that's possible, but you don't count on it. Jay Johnson often says that there just aren't a lot of guys that immediately plug and play as freshmen into an SEC rotation. He always mentions Drew Beam, who did it at Tennessee for 3 years. Liam Peterson just finished his 3rd year at Florida and was, ironically, the Guardians' first-round pick this year in front of Logan Schmidt. So I'm not trying to dump cold water on this whole thing. I'm just telling you what I think he is, and he is a helpful left-handed piece. We know that LSU was looking for left-handed pitching. We thought they would get it out of the transfer portal, and they ended up not doing that. But they did restock the shelves through this signing class because you got Lucas Naraki through the draft. He pulled himself out of the draft. That is a wicked left-handed slider that he brings to the team. You got him through the draft. You got Braxton Beatty to pull out of the draft. That's a guy that profiles as a left-handed starting pitcher as he progresses. He was not a huge prospect in this draft because he doesn't throw 97 miles an hour like Schmidt can. He's more of a 91, 92 left-hander, but he's projectable. He's got an easy motion, and you feel like there's more in that tank, and he's got a repeatable motion that you feel like can be a starting pitcher. And then Braden Cupid comes in from West Monroe as well. That's a left-handed arm that you bring in. And you brought back Ethan Plog, Cooper Williams, Danny Lockenmeyer, Jonah Ase. So you've got now 7 or 8 left-handed pitchers on the team, and you need to make sure that you can get 3 of them to be helpful for you. And I think that there's every reason to believe that Schmidt can help. I'm just not telling you, well, he was a second-round pick, bam, Saturday starter. That would surprise me a little bit if that were the case. He's talented enough, but you see what a lot of these freshmen did in LSU's program in their first year. It a lot of times takes some time to get these SEC hitters with metal bats out. Like, Anthony Ianson wasn't what he became at LSU when he started things in San Diego. Gage Jump needed a year of seasoning, then he got hurt at UCLA. Paul Skeens was nowhere near what he became early in his career at Air Force. There's a difference between an 18-year-old, which, look, Logan Schmidt is going to play all of next season as an 18-year-old. He just turned 18 the Thursday before the draft. So he's going to play as an 18. There's a difference between an 18-year-old and a 21, 22-year-old that's been in college weightlifting programs, that's been working with college pitching coaches, that's got college innings under his belt. Like, it's just a different deal. So this is a huge get for LSU as far as the program goes. I think it's an ideal landing spot for Schmidt because they're not going to force him to go out there and take the mantle. If he runs with it like Kason Evans did 2 years ago, great. Plug him into the back end of the bullpen and let him go. If he needs a year of seasoning like a lot of these guys did, you can get that because you've got William Schmidt back and you've got Kason Evans back and you've got Cooper Moore back and you brought in Landon Hood and you've got some guys returning that have pitched some big innings. Yes, you need everybody to elevate their level of play. LSU's pitching staff last year was not good enough, and you're going to have to use some of the new guys, and the old guys are going to have to pitch better than they did, and Jay Johnson's talked about that at length in the offseason, especially around the drafts. But I think there are a lot of people that just see the second-round pick, see the 97 on the gun. This has become a big story because guys that get picked in the first 10 rounds generally don't end up in college. 98+% of them sign. So it's immediately the deal where everybody goes, "Oh, is he a Friday night starter?" He's not. I would bet my house he won't start. He won't start the season opener. That's just not the way Jay Johnson's going to operate this thing. The way that I think it will work is he will be eased in some low leverage spots early on in next baseball season, and if he performs, you go to the high leverage. That's just Kason Evans threw one low leverage outing, his first one at LSU, and the rest of the time he was used in big time spots the rest of the season, and he delivered. That could be a very, very realistic path for Logan Schmidt. But this is a huge win for Jay Johnson. He spearheaded this thing, and he knew that he could get this done. It was not easy, and it was a different kind of sales pitch because you had to change the way a young person thinks about his path in baseball. But Jay Johnson got that done. I was dead wrong on this last week when I told you I thought he would sign with a junior college and take another bite at this apple next summer. I was dead wrong. I was right about the fact that I said any bet against Jay Johnson on the roster building front is a bad bet. I made a bad bet. You get burned on it. But it's a big deal for LSU. I now like where LSU sits from a left-handed perspective because I think Noraki and Logan Schmidt have a chance to be impact guys immediately. And I do believe Ethan Plog has more in the tank that he can give. He can be better than he was this past year. And then with Lockenmeyer and Cooper Williams, you got a relatively high floor on those two guys. The ceiling's not through the roof because they're just not hard throwers, but they are left-handed. They do spin breaking balls pretty well, and they have pitched at this level now. They've got to be a lot better than they were this past year. But if they're not, you do have reinforcements with the young guys. And I think Noraki and Schmidt absolutely project into this bullpen. And if Schmidt wrestles his way into that starting rotation as the lone lefty, I think that's awesome because, as I told you previously, between Case and Evans, William Schmidt, Cooper Moore, you've got a lot of guys between 6'1" and 6'3" who are right-handed who throw 93 to 95 miles an hour. Like they're kind of similar profiles. They're different pitchers on the whole, but they're similar in the way that they approach things. And a left-handed wrinkle wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'm not putting that kind of expectation on him. We'll see what he does in the fall. We will see what he does in the fall, and then you'll get a chance to look at him in the spring as well. But big news for LSU baseball. Logan Schmidt decides he turned down the second-round pick of the Guardians and then turned down junior college to come here for 3 years in LSU's program where he could be a really, really good one if it all works out. So great news for Jay Johnson as they'll push forward into the school year. Great news that I'll talk about later on in the show that LSU 3 exhibitions, 2 will be here at the box on big football weekends, and 1 against a team that played in the College World Series in June. Troy will be here, so we'll talk about that later on in the show. That's our opening drive here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. When we come back, let's talk some Saints. Surprise retirement. What does it mean for the Saints at wide receiver? We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com. We live in a digital world, right? Everybody starts their processes online, and you can do that at FabryChevrolet.com. The website is so user-friendly. If you know what you're looking for, you can really filter things down and weed out what you're not looking at. You can filter by price, filter by mileage, new vehicles, pre-owned vehicles, make and model if you know exactly what you're looking for. All of it is right there at the click of a button at FabryChevrolet.com. Once you hone in on what you're looking for, you want to take a test drive, get up Highway 61 to St. Francisville and see for yourself that great customer service that the Faby family has given Baton Rouge for 35-plus years. It's Fabry Chevrolet GMC on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. You can also find them online. The entire inventory is right there at FabryChevrolet.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning, remodeling bathrooms and closets. Want to get that remodel done before Christmas? Back to school time. Might be time to make that call. It sounds crazy when it's 105 degrees outside for me to start talking about Christmas, but if you are having family members come in for Christmas and you've got a bathroom that you never use or that doesn't work properly but it's going to need to at that time, don't wait until Thanksgiving to make that phone call. Might have a construction zone in your house when people come over. Make the call now. Just get it over with, get it done, give yourself the peace of mind to know that when you have that big family gathering coming up later this year, that bathroom is functional and ready to go. If you want to just do a remodel to freshen things up, David Duvall is happy to do that. Go to the website, OneBathAndClosets.com. You can see pictures of their great work. It is beautiful, it is functional, it's customized, and they do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. So if you want to do a bathroom renovation, there's only one call you need to make. That's One Bath and Closets. They're online at OneBathAndClosets.com. All right, interesting news over the weekend. I certainly did not see this coming, and I don't know that anybody did. Well, some people probably did, but nobody outside the media did. That you had a retirement off the Saints wide receiver core just a week into camp. Jalen Polk, who who the Saints dealt for last year, was a former second-round pick of New England, decided to hang it up, and that's just an odd time to get that done. The Saints hadn't even put pads on, and Polk decided that his time with football was over. Kellen Moore, Saints head coach, was asked about it today and said why it was time for Jalen Polk to step aside.
I'll let him kind of handle that, but again, it was a personal decision, and Jalen had a great OTAs, great start to camp, and I think he just felt like this was the best decision for him on a personal level, and so love that guy. He did an awesome job through the entire process here, the year plus that we had him, and so we'll continue to support him and love him.
So what does this matter to the Saints roster? Well, one, it opens up a roster spot. Jalen Polk was going to be on this team, and he was going to be one of the top 5 options, maybe top 4 options at wide receiver, and he's now out of the equation. So you look around, and yes, Chris Olave's at the top of the food chain right now, and yes, Jordan Tyson's right there behind him. And then you've got Devon Vele, who had a nice end of the season last year before he got hurt. Gives you some physical size and a presence there, big body receiver. Then you've got Bryce Lance and Barryon Brown, who they brought in the draft this year. Lance is such a big play threat and is such a talent with that size and that speed. And Barryon Brown made a big play today, sounds like, at Saints camp and gives you a return game element to the wide receiver position. He's going to make this team as well. That's your 5 right there. It's Olave, Tyson, Lance, Brown, Vele. That's your top 5. Do the Saints keep a 6 wide receiver? Potentially. And you've got some options there. Now, Mason Tipton's hurt. We know he balls out every August, but he's hurt right now. You got former LSU Tiger, Kentwood native Trey Palmer, who brings a lot of speed and has played some NFL football in his day. You got Ronnie Bell, who's famously the guy that I had never heard of when he caught a touchdown pass in December of last year. And then you got Bub Means, who seems like he's been around forever when he really hasn't been around forever, just a year. But those are guys that are now in a position, if they can turn some heads, to make this team or certainly hang around on the practice squad. And there's a spot opened up for them. I was excited to see what Jalen Polk could give the Saints. You're not talking about a guy they found on the street here. This is a former second-round pick who was a really productive player at Washington, playing with Michael Penix and Rome Odunze, and he was a really talented guy, and then he got hurt and didn't play last year, but the Saints still valued him enough to go get him, and I actually kind of liked the move to potentially buy low on a guy that was out, but he, for some reason, doesn't feel like he wants to participate. We'll let him speak to why that is, but I think it is a little bit of a blow to the team, but at the same time, an opportunity for those guys to step up. There's so little known about this Saints wide receiving core because Olave has been hurt, and Jordan Tyson is a rookie that has also been hurt, and Devon Vele got hurt, and Bryce Lance comes from the FCS, and Barryon Brown is just a rookie who was really more of a return specialist and played on really bad offenses his entire time at Kentucky. There is, and at LSU, quite frankly, and there's talent there, but there's not a lot of stability, and you're trying to usher that in around a young quarterback who's trying to get reps with guys, and certainly, as Kellen Moore talked about, like you've seen Jalen Polk out there in OTAs, you've seen him in minicamp, you've seen him out there early in camp, and that's a guy that they've spent some time on that is now out of the equation. So I don't think anybody is going to point at the Saints wide receiver group and call it, one of the top 5 in the league, but you need it to be a lot better than it was at the end of last year. I think they've done a great job to address it, and thankfully you did go draft 2 wide receivers. I don't think they could have seen this coming, but it's a good thing they did that. You don't double up on a position often in the late rounds, but the Saints felt like they had to do that, and hopefully you've got hits there. And if Tyson's hit on the front end of the draft, and obviously what you get in Barryon Brown and Bryce Lance is huge. So it's a surprising thing. The Saints have seen these early camp retirements. Tyrann Mathieu certainly fits in that box, and I guess it's just one of those deals. Like Hester's talked about this in our halls. Like some days eventually you just get up and you go, I just don't want to do this anymore. And maybe that is what happened to Jalen Polk, and maybe it's not. Maybe they're extenuating circumstance. Kellen Moore certainly didn't elaborate, but it's a little bit jarring to those who weren't in the know to see this. So it's not a loaded Saints wide receiver group, and it got a little thinner there, but it is an opportunity. And I think there's a chance for Trey Palmer to make this team. I think he's got to compete. He has a similar profile to Barryon Brown, where they're speed guys that have return history and can be big play threats. That's an opportunity for him. Mason Tipton has got to get back on the field, and he may be able to make this practice squad because the Saints clearly have valued him for a couple of years now. And Ronnie Bell, I think, is maybe the last guy in or out. But it's a team, it's a wide receiver group that I think is exciting, but unproven, and there's a concern there. And I think that Polk was one of those big talents that you now don't have access to. So Olave's out on the field. That's a good thing. We'll see what these young guys can do. I think it was a big day for Barryon Brown, and we'll hear about that a little bit later on in the show. We'll talk a little bit more with Saints with some of their sound. But look, Jalen Polk stepping away from football. I mean, I looked up his age. It's he's only 24 years old. So yeah, it's just it's an odd circumstance, but I feel like somebody the Saints were counting on, and you no longer have access to that. Jordan, were you surprised to see this news?
Very surprised, but at the same time, man, it's hot out there, man. It's hot in New Orleans around this time of year. So when you out there and you're looking at the depth chart, you seeing Bryce Lance making plays, you see Barryon Brown making plays. Them walls start closing in. Hopefully it's nothing, mental-wise or whatever Jalen Polk is going through. But, the Saints did give up an asset to get this guy. So they expected him to make the team and be, useful this season. So you're right. It definitely opens the door up. So Barryon Brown had a good day today. So it's opening the door for one of these guys to really, that you thought were, maybe might be a special teams type of, maybe return kicks and punts. But now there's actually might be a room for you, a spot for you to hit the field immediately and hit the ground running. So right now you're looking for that spot is just up for grabs.
It's the funny thing about camp is that once you get into like October, everybody's pulling on the same rope. In August, you're fighting with your teammates.
Yeah.
That's the odd dynamic that's in it. It's certainly not new or unique. It just is what this month brings in the National Football League. But at the same time, you've got to be bummed to see a guy step away. And then you look at it and go, oh, well, this could be my shot. It's like when you're in the minor leagues in baseball and like you see somebody hit the injured list, like, well, somebody's got to come up.
Like that's a guy.
You don't want to pull for guys to get hurt or step away from the game, but it opens the door. There's no question. And it's fortunate that the Saints spent 3 draft picks on wide receivers this year.
Mickey Loomis. I know Hunt. I know. I'm coming out and saying
unless he knew this was a possibility, we can't give him credit.
But I'm gonna just give him credit for covering his bases and actually, you know what? Investing in the receiver position. How many years we've been crying and calling for Marquez Callaway out there, Traquan Smith, all these guys. Smith. All these random guys.
Ronnie Bell.
My boy Kevin Austin still out there. Hopefully.
It's burned in my brain driving home from church last year and hearing Mike Haas go touchdown Ronnie Bell. And baby. I'm in the car and the 2 kids are there and my wife's there. I go, I've never heard of this person.
Just pulled him up this week.
That is. You could have told me he played for the other team. I would have believed it. Never heard of him. That's where Shuck was last year when he was winning games with such a motley crew. So interesting news out of New Orleans. We'll talk a little bit more about it later on in the show. Our Monday shows are brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. They're online at guaranteehealth.com. That's guaranteehealth.com. Look, if you are in the healthcare space and you have not worked with Guarantee Health Solutions, I would strongly recommend making a phone call to Rachel Fricke and her team. They have done incredible things in the healthcare space. Like you're talking about an organization that helped one healthcare provider take its net promoter score from 65 to 90 in just 3 months. They've got partnerships in 12 states. They've got more than 24, and they can help you with your website, with your digital marketing, with your patient experience. Rachel comes from a hospitality background, and I think all too often healthcare organizations may not think of themselves in the hospitality space. It's just treating patients. But you want to make sure that your website's functional. You want to make sure that your brand is strong. You want to make sure that the experience that a patient has is a positive one and that they come back and rely on you for their healthcare. And if you haven't taken that seriously or looked into that deeply, Guarantee Health Solutions can help you with that. They're online at guaranteehealth.com. That's guaranteehealth.com. They are moving healthcare forward. We're going to talk to Michael Katz. He covers Ole Miss. He wrote a great story over the weekend about this lawsuit between Ole Miss, Devin Harper, and Prince William Miellen. Ole Miss released a statement saying that they reached out for payment from the 2 players in January. Then after the 30-day window was up, they reached out to LSU, said we're not a party to this, and backed up. And there's a discrepancy between LSU and Ole Miss that may end up in a court of law. It may take some time, but it may end up in a court of law. What Michael is reporting is that LSU feels that, or the players feel like there's an exorbitant fee tacked on here. And that's what I was careful last week when I took the side of Ole Miss and I said that LSU's players or LSU should pay up. I was careful to say in the middle of that, and I wrote it in my column as well, like, I want to be clear, I haven't seen the contract. I'm just assuming, and I'm happy to revisit the conversation if something else comes out, but I'm just assuming that the contract that was signed says if you don't play for Ole Miss next year and you enter the transfer portal, you owe this. That's my assumption. If there is some loophole or Ole Miss's attorneys did a poor job or LSU sees an out to this, then I'll reevaluate my stance on the situation. Well, Michael dug into this, and so I wanted to talk to him, reached out to him via text yesterday, and he said he'd be happy to come on. So we're going to go up to Oxford, Mississippi, and see what the latest is. And look, because here's the deal for LSU. If you're an LSU fan, you're going, why should I care about this? Why do I care if they pay the money or not? Well, if LSU does end up paying this, not the players, it will come out of LSU's revenue sharing budget, which for the first year was $21 million, and it's going to go up. But you would lose like $950,000 out of your revenue sharing pie, which is a pretty big deal. So I'm curious what Michael uncovered with the people that he spoke to. He talked to people at Ole Miss. He talked to people in the legal field. I'm just curious as to what can come of this. And Michael did a good job reporting on it. So we'll talk to him when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
GoTro's Outdoor Power. GoTrosOnline.com. Need that zero-turn mower? There's only one place to go. Well, there's actually two because there's two locations. Got one on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge, and you got one that is in Gonzales. It's GoTro's Outdoor Power. Largest hustler inventory in the state of Louisiana. National Hustler Dealer of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. They've got a great extended warranty over at GoTro's as well. And GoTro's is the warranty. So you can add 2 years or 200 hours to the manufacturer warranty if you want to go that route at GoTro's Outdoor Power. They got huge inventory. You got a new property or you've got equipment that's failing you, go to GoTro's and get you that new Hustler. Fantastic inventory, fantastic people, 22 years in business, 2 locations, Airline Highway in Baton Rouge and in Gonzales. It's GoTro's Outdoor Power.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
Chugging along here on a Monday, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Covered some Saints, covered some LSU baseball. Now let's turn to the courtroom. That's where LSU and Ole Miss may be headed. What else is new between these two programs? Michael Katz covers Ole Miss for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal and good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Monday. Michael, thanks for the time. How are you?
Good. Just another day of waiting to see what happens next between both of them.
It's just an incessant back and forth that is going to lead all the way into September. You went digging into the legal side of this contract between Prince William Miellen, Devin Harper, and Ole Miss, which was, of course, broken, and those two hit the transfer portal and ended up in Baton Rouge. We read the statement from Ole Miss last week about the players being contacted, refusing to pay. LSU was contacted, refused to pay, and now we've got a lawsuit on our hands. So you went digging. What were you looking for?
I think for me, when I hear just as an outsider, a contract was broken, like it sounds pretty straightforward, right? I don't know what the conversation was or why, what the holdup was, and then you realize that there's experts in other fields for reasons, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to talk to some college sports attorneys and see what this is really all about. And it was really fascinating because, yes, there's a contract signed. There's no denial of that. But what is up potentially for debate is damages at stake here, and that's the buyout here. So $550,000 for Princeville, $400, I believe it was, for Devin Harper. And again, you think a buyout's pretty straightforward, but it was not. And so the question sort of comes up of, that's the big thing at stake here is the elephant in the room is that this isn't technically pay for play, these contracts. They are technically part of NIL and rev share and all that sort of stuff. You're not supposed to have employment contracts. So the argument is, if you're LSU, is Ole Miss really losing $550,000 in damages by not having Princeville Miellen's rights to market? And that's a really interesting question, because if this was simply, is he worth that much money to the team on the field, that's a no-brainer. Ole Miss is winning that one 100%. But if this does go to trial, is it a situation where, Ole Miss, you're kind of overshooting the marketing side of things, of how much he's worth to your program. So it's really interesting. It was a lot more multifaceted than I thought it was going to be.
So let me see if I'm on the right track here. As far as you know, this is not a deal where Ole Miss is arguing that he's worth this on the field. We have X amount of dollars to spend. He's worth the $550,000. This is in terms of marketing dollars. Is that what they're going to have to argue because it can't be pay for play?
Well, so that's the thing, is that like everybody knows that
Right.
this is pay for play. Like, I mean, no one is signing this thinking otherwise. But the NCAA, you can't technically do that. And so when it comes to, hypothetically, a court of law, you are going to have to argue either that, yeah, we think that their rights are worth that much, or you say, hey, listen, I know the NCAA says this isn't pay for play, but everyone in this room knows what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. So, and that might be the route I'm talking to the attorneys that I talk to, that Ole Miss takes and says, hey, listen, we're just going to get out in front of this. We all know what this is. Let's take it for what it is. It can't be an employment contract, but let's be honest, these are employment contracts. Just no one wants to call student athletes employees because that creates a whole other set of problems. So it's really interesting with the language and what is allowed with the NCAA, what we know these contracts really are, and what they technically are two very different things.
Have you seen the contracts?
I've not seen the contracts. I have seen the official lawsuits that mention the contracts.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to get those sorts of situations out of them.
Right. Are those number figures in the contract? And do you believe that when Prince William Onmielen and Devin Harper jumped in the transfer portal, they knew that they were on the hook for that potentially?
I mean, again, it's without actually seeing what they signed in early January, whatever it was. But it does, at least in the suit, and obviously Ole Miss released a statement, and then I had to go look up to see what the lawsuits actually say. But the lawsuits at least intimate that it was very clear that if you are signing this, and if you leave, here are the consequences of breaking the agreement before the term ends. So now, I don't know if LSU told them that they were going to pay that. I don't know those sorts of things. And that's another really interesting part of this, is that LSU has said, this isn't our contract. This isn't our deal. Which is, this is not a lawsuit against LSU. This is a lawsuit against the players.
Right.
So a lot of really interesting things that could potentially happen here if this doesn't get settled.
Do you think this is a tough, because you're now judging intent from Ole Miss? Do you think this has anything to do with LSU? Like, they would not be pursuing this as aggressively if it were an LSU, say that he transferred to, I was going to pull Louisville out of it. They play Louisville to start. Georgia Tech?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think it helps the situation. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion right now between these two, but I think more than anything, it's the monetary value.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of change, and $550,000. Maybe in the grand scheme of college athletics doesn't seem like that much, but when you're dealing with rev share and you only have so much, you're 20.5 or whatever it is. That's a good chunk of change, almost $1 million for both players combined. So, I don't know if they would have made it public. I think part of it is that they never heard a response, and that probably ticked them off, especially given, who's in charge over there. Were they told not to respond? Who knows how this whole thing went down. I'm sure that both players got, the messages that they were, looking for the money. I don't know who told them not to talk or what to do about it, but I think there's a lot of emotion between these two, but I think with how much money it was, if this is like a $50,000 buyout, I don't know if they're going quite as hard, but I think just on principle and the amount of money, I think Ole Miss is going after this one pretty hard.
Michael Katz is our guest, covers Ole Miss for Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, talking about the lawsuit between Ole Miss, Devin Harper, Principal Iman Mielen. I don't know exactly how Ole Miss has allotted its revenue sharing per sport. I know that LSU in year one was just under $16 million for the football team, so I would imagine Ole Miss is in that similar space. My question is, these dollar amounts, was that the amount that they were going to receive in revenue sharing, or are these just the amounts that they settled on for damages should the contracts be broken?
That is a very good question, because that is not explicitly stated.
Okay.
And all of that is said in the suit is what the damage is, what the buyout is. And again, without being privy to the contracts, and it's hard to. Those are very hard to get a hold of. College programs are trying really hard not to let people see what certain guys are getting, because you don't want to create situations in the locker room, all those sorts of things. But yeah, no, it would be easy to say, oh, well, he was making $550,000 at Ole Miss. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It could have been more. I think there's a good chance it was probably more. But that's for what we know. Those numbers, the total of $950,000 between the two, was what they are claiming the buyouts were. So basically, the damages.
And with the legal folks that you spoke with, what's the sense on a timeline for this potentially, and what do you feel like the likely result is of these lawsuits?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the latter. Both agreed that this is probably something that gets settled. If nothing else, you just never know what's going to happen in a trial, and especially if discovery and something comes out, it could just make things like way worse and way murkier, and it's going to drag on. And it costs a lot of money, obviously, to take things into court. That being said, you do never know, and these are both. Both sides are pretty stubborn on the situation, but as far as the timeline's concerned, even if it's settled, it might not be till the end of the season, like a few months. Principal Iman Mielen might already be headed to the NFL draft or whatever, right? Like, he might not even be playing at LSU anymore when this whole thing gets settled, depending on what he, decides to do. So this is, I don't imagine this is settled before the season starts. But I do think that it'll, at least who I've talked to, it'll get settled. It'll probably, one guy said, kind of somewhere in the middle between, of the buyouts and what was asked for. Maybe like $500,000 total, something like that between the two players. Just get something out of it and move on. But you never know. We'll see.
We certainly will. Hopefully there's more football to talk about instead of lawsuits next time we speak.
Please.
Have a great week, Michael. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you.
He's Michael Katz of the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Look, I'm not an attorney, and I'm certainly not a ruthless negotiator. Without seeing the contracts, it's hard to have a hardline opinion on this. It is evident to me that LSU and these two players are willing to play chicken as long as Ole Miss wants to do it. If Ole Miss wants to dump money into legal fees and chase this for months down at a court and see what they can get, LSU is probably content to sit back and say, do whatever you got to do. We're not paying attention. We're going to go play football. And whatever. I said last week that I think if you sign a deal and those are the terms of the deal, it should be pretty black and white. But clearly there's a legal team in Baton Rouge that doesn't feel that way. So they're a lot smarter than me, and they've seen the stuff. So I'm interested in this only as far as how much money LSU is taking out of its revenue sharing to send back to Ole Miss, if that does happen, because every dollar and cent is important. And that's why I think part of the reason why Ole Miss is chasing this the way that they are. You can say that there's part of it that's due to spite for Lane Kiffin, but I also think there could be some of that. I'm not going to rule that out, but there's also a deal where if we can't keep people here with binding contracts, like, that's a pretty rough precedent to set when we're trying to retain players. Like, this is one way that you thought you could keep people around, is to sign them to agreements and put significant buyouts on them, like you do in every other hire. But that doesn't appear to be the case. You sign guys to revenue sharing agreements, they're in the portal 48 hours later, and they leave and they don't pay you. That's a tough scene, tough way to keep a thing together. But that's where it is. Appreciate Michael for some time, and appreciate him for chasing all that down and putting a good story together over the weekend up there at the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. We'll come back. Are the Dodgers ruining sports? I got my thoughts next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Well, I'm telling you about the Highland Insurance Group online at HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carver and his team, just first class to work with, especially when it comes to the benefits side of things. They've shifted some of their focus to the benefits game, and it's because they feel like there's a lot of people in South Louisiana who are really up against it when it comes to paying for healthcare, dental, vision for their employees. Like, it's expensive. It becomes prohibitive. And if you don't have great benefits, you may not get great people to join your organization. That's a tough thing to deal with. I can't promise you the Highland Insurance Group is going to be a silver bullet. Like, I can't promise you they're going to come in and save you 13% right off the top. But they can provide another option. If you've had a bad renewal or you've got a renewal that you're dreading coming up and you want a second set of eyes and you want a second opinion, the Highland Insurance Group can do that. Call Jonathan Carbo and his team and see if they can't be a game changer for you on the benefits front. They're an independent broker. They've got contracts with different carriers. They may be able to save your business money while providing great benefits. That's what the Highland Insurance Group aims to do. So call Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group or check them out online at HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
Every day, our show brought to you by First American Bank and Trust. They're online at FABT.com, FABT.com. But don't go online. Just go in. There's 25 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana. They've been at this 116 years, y'all. Community local bank. Every decision made at First American Bank and Trust is made locally here in Southeast Louisiana. When you pick up the phone and call First American Bank and Trust, you're getting someone in Southeast Louisiana, not a call center in San Francisco, not a call center in Chicago. They may not get back to you. You're dealing with somebody who's part of your community. Whether you're down the bayou, you're up I-12, you're over in Metairie, just outside Baton Rouge, there's a local First American Bank and Trust branch near you in Southeast Louisiana. So if you're looking for a commercial loan, if you're looking for a personal loan, make it First American Bank and Trust. They're online at FABT.com. Dodgers traded for Tarek Skubal, which I was not heartbroken to see because I didn't want him to go to the Brewers. But a lot of people were up in arms. A lot of people were yelling about collusion. And I understand, like, the Dodgers are laughable at this point. Like, you're looking at a rotation that is the top has Tarek Skubal, who's won 2 Cy Youngs. You've got Yoshinori Yamamoto, who was the World Series MVP last year, as your number 2. Blake Snell is your number 3. He's got 3 Cy Youngs. You got Shohei Ohtani maybe as your number 4 when he gets back, if he gets back healthy. But he's not there right now, but doesn't really matter because you've still got Tyler Glass now as your number 5, who was the Rays ace like 5 minutes ago and is 6'5" and throws 97 miles an hour. And just for good measure, because, why not just have an embarrassment of riches, their number 6 starter is Justin Wrobleski, who was an all-star this year, made the all-star team. Left-handed, throws hard. Their 6th starter was on the all-star team. It's the greatest rotation I've ever seen in my life. And, oh, by the way, in the lineup, they got Mookie Betts, who's won an MVP, and Shohei Ohtani, who's won an MVP, multiple, and Freddie Freeman, who's won an MVP. And they're going to Hall of Fame, all those guys. And so it's crazy. And there are a lot of folks that think that this is a point being made by the owners to try to win and get that salary cap put in place. I choose not to believe in conspiracy theories most of the time. And I just don't want to believe that the Tigers are punting on their major league roster and intentionally acquiring substandard prospects for their best asset because they want to prove a point. I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to believe that. So I won't believe that. So I don't blame the Dodgers at all. I realize it makes the Cubs' path to try to win a World Series really, really difficult because the Dodgers are that good. But let's just be honest. Like, the Padres had them on the ropes 2 years ago in a decisive game. The Blue Jays should have won the World Series last year. If they could run the bases, they would have won the World Series in Game 7, but they screwed up running the bases. And look, Milwaukee wins 100 games every year. They have no budget. Tampa is leading the East. They have no budget. So, yes, I agree that what the Dodgers are doing is not healthy for competition. They've won 2 World Series in a row, but they were in really competitive playoff series. So it's not like they're just running roughshod over the league. They're ultimately getting it done, but they're not just running roughshod over the league. I'm torn on this because what's best for the competitive equity of the game is for a salary cap and a salary floor to be put in. And that the A's and the Rays and the Royals and the Brewers have to keep up. You have to keep spending money. And we'll put a cap on this. What the Dodgers are doing is not necessarily sustainable because you're not going to have a lot of players defer hundreds of millions of dollars like Ohtani does. And, oh, by the way, he plays 2 positions for them. He hits leadoff and he pitches. So that whole deal is a little bit out of whack. There are no other Shohei Ohtanis that skew things that drastically financially and on the field. And so once his time is over, it kind of equalizes to an extent. But all I know is it's heartbreaking to me that we're going to get into summer next year and they're not going to be playing baseball. And I don't know who's going to blink. The owners think this is their best opportunity ever to get this done. And they're going to have a lot of support from the small markets to try to get it done. And I don't know if the players are in a position to punt 3 or 4 months with no checks. Bryce Harper will be fine, and he's one of the loudest guys chanting. But like the fans don't care if the player signs for $280 million or $165 million. That's all the same to us. We just don't care. So it's hard for the players to get support on this, and it feels like a lot of folks are going to side with the ownership. I don't blame the Dodgers for it. I'm glad that they're pursuing it the way that they do. And the Cubs benefit from this. They got more money than most of the teams in Major League Baseball. Of course, that's where my loyalty sits. I don't suggest that the Dodgers have ruined baseball. And I want the Cubs to go make a move and get better and beat the Dodgers in October. That's kind of my attitude about it all. I don't want to sit here and cry unfair. But I understand. Like, it's tough. It's tough to compete with a team that does things the way that the Dodgers have done them. And I don't – it's as good a rotation as I've ever seen. And the lineup's not so bad either. So we'll see. Sounds like based on my text message, the Cubs just made a really good move. So I'm going to go do some Twitter refreshing. You can check out our show on demand wherever you find your sound if you missed hour number 1. We got a lot to get to in hour number 2, some LSU football, as well as some Saints sound. So pause for Sports Center. Come back with us. Hour 2 of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, online at FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com. The Fabry family's been at this 35 years, y'all. 35 years here in Baton Rouge. Why? Because of their customer service. They treat people the right way. You've known them, 3 locations, 5 brands, and this is their newest on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. It's a Chevrolet. It's a GMC. So if you're looking for a Chevy Tahoe, maybe a Chevy Suburban, you can find them there, new or pre-owned. You're looking for a truck, they've got Chevy Silverados. They've also got your GMC Sierras. Maybe an SUV for you. School's starting up. Got to get the kids loaded up for school every morning. Got a Yukon, Denali. They got those right there on the lot from the GMC side. If you want to see the entire inventory, you can do that at FabryChevrolet.com. Sort by whatever it is you're looking for, make and model, price, mileage, whatever it is you're looking for, they've got it there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Go by and see them. Highway 61 in St. Francisville, and, of course, online right there at FabryChevrolet.com.